Okay, so I've talked about America, I've talked about the West, I've talked about that culture, I've talked about that history, I've talked about that system, and I've talked about so-called white people, so-called whiteness, and so on. I've talked about you, but I haven't really talked to you, to so-called white people. Those people who, those human beings who are categorized as white in your society and who categorize themselves and see themselves as belonging to that category, that artificial, fabricated, fake category. I mean, it is a fake category, but you treat it as real in your society, and that ends up making it real, like I said, because you put it into the mentality of the people who are in that category, or whatever category, and the people who are excluded from that category. You treat people differently because of it. And now, because of that different treatment, there's different historical experiences because of that fake category. So I want to talk to you directly now. Not about you, not at you, but to you, to so-called white people. Sometimes, honestly, I wish that I really wish that I was truly fluent in another language, because even speaking English, using the terms and using the words that are used in this type of a discussion, when you talk about so-called race and what have you, it almost makes it impossible to discuss it correctly, because all of the terms that you use in a discussion like this have connotations and have concepts that are attached to them. And those concepts and those connotations do nothing but muddy the discourse. So you end up bringing the misconceptions and bringing the falsehoods the moment you use the words, the moment you use the terminology. Again, words like white or black or race or what have you. I mean, just using the terms indirectly or implicitly validates those concepts. And the language is very limited. So the most that I can do is to add so-called at the beginning and at the front end, to try to avoid the inadvertent validation on the back end. It's exhausting, subhanAllah. It's exhausting to speak of these things with any degree of accuracy or any degree of precision using the English language. It's very difficult. It's a minefield. But yes, I want to talk to so-called white people. And I can do that in a way that most people who make the types of arguments that I do make, most people can't do it. And I can do it for a very specific reason, because I am classified as one of you. I am classified as one of you in your category. I'm Irish German, as I've said many, many times. I mean, I've seen people in the comment section inventing a black grandfather for me, or saying that I'm so-called mixed or biracial or what have you. But no, I have no ancestors that did not come from Europe. I know where my family came from. I know when they came over to America. I know my lineage very well, alhamdulillah. So by the fabricated racial taxonomy of America that in America they use to organize human beings, I am so-called white. I grew up inside of that experience, inside of the experience of being so-called white in America. Also of being poor, which is not a fake category. Also of being the son of divorced parents, which is not a fake category. And obviously belonging to those, poverty and being a child of a single mother, that impacted my experience in that country as well. But again, even those experiences, I was treated according to the so-called white category. I moved through that country inside that category. That's the parentheses around my experience in that country. So all of the treatment that category, that comes with that category, the assumptions, the permissions, and so forth, I know what that feels like from the inside. Not as a tourist, not as a researcher, not theoretical, as a resident of that classification, So I am from, and my ancestors are from, that continent that originated this whole culture from which the system emerged, the culture from which the system emerged. And my family, as far as we can trace back, they were all farmers and peasants. They were serfs. And obviously on the Irish side, they were colonized and brutalized by the British. But on both sides of my family, my ancestors worked the land. They were exactly what I talked about before. My ancestors were farm tools, just like what I talked about. And I have no doubt that my ancestors probably slept alongside their goats and their sheep and their pigs, just like what I said. Your family's history is my family's history. I think that my parents were probably the first generation of my lineage who ever even became city dwellers. Our whole history, your whole history, is a lineage populated by very rough and struggling people. I come from the same thing that you come from, so-called white people. I mean, none of my people even knew that they were so-called white until they set foot in America. That's when you called them white, and then you told them that being white meant something. They entered the American caste system, as it were, where the haves and the have-nots, and the should-haves and the should-have-nots was color-coded. But of course, they would have already been very deeply familiar with the whole concept of the haves and the have-nots. You understand? The idea that some people are eligible for abuse and exploitation. That's the whole history of Europe. That's the whole history. Except that it was usually on the basis of who could or who could not impose their will through brute force and coercion, not on the basis of complexion. You know, having a pale complexion didn't benefit my ancestors in Ireland in any way whatsoever, nor my ancestors in Germany in the countryside, under the control of different clans and whatnot, the church, rich landowners and what have you. But for whatever reason, once they got to America, their complexion became a factor. It became a factor in their living conditions and their experience in that country. And again, everybody just goes along with it. Everybody just goes along with it because they're not used to fairness or justice or humane standards or treatment or behavior or what have you. They're not used to that. We are used to eking out our existence, surviving amidst deprivation, exploitation, and the feudal system, misery and oppression. That's what we're used to, deprivation. Taking whatever you're given or taking whatever you can get. That's the history. So you see, there's a reflex acceptance of suffering. Doesn't matter if it's my suffering or your suffering. But if someone's got to suffer, I'd rather it be you than me. That's the mentality that we come from. You understand? There's no real concept of getting rid of suffering altogether. It just gets traded back and forth. Sometimes it's yours, sometimes it's mine. But someone's lack of suffering is always going to be paid for by someone else's suffering. That's a very deep belief based on centuries and centuries of lived experience in Europe. So like I say, the history of my family is going to be more or less the same as the history of almost any so-called white American's history. Their family history. It's almost going to be the same. And my own individual experience in that country will be more or less the same as most of you, so-called white people. It's going to be mostly the same. But Islam gave me a lens. It gave me a lens, as I said, like a witness position, a stance outside the category that I was placed in that society, and from which I could turn and look at it, and look at myself inside of it, and name what I saw. And what I saw was extraordinary in its ugliness, and that's a fact. That's an objective fact. And that's what you hear me talk about. That's what you hear me talk about. And I call it what it is. It's ugly. It's inhuman. It's violent and it's primitive. That's what it is. But understand, I am not taking a holier than thou position. Okay? I'm not scolding you and wagging my finger at you like I'm above all of that. No. I say all that as someone who has that ugliness in him. I'm not standing outside and accusing you of something that's foreign to my own experience. It's right here inside me too. Right alongside with you. Yes. I'm naming what I recognize in my own reflexes, in my own instincts, in my own first impulses. You understand me? That's what gives me the standing to say this, and the obligation to say it honestly, as a Muslim. The only thing that makes me any different from you, the only thing that makes me any different from any of you is Islam. Not because Islam removed all of that ugliness from my character or from my psyche or from my instincts, no, but because Islam lets me see it, lets me recognize it, and then that lets me make other choices, that lets me control it, that lets me keep it in check. So I don't just act like the feral primitive descendant of Europe that my unchecked reflexes would otherwise make me be. Do you understand me? So that's what we're doing here. That's what I'm talking, that's what this talk is. This is not a lecture at you. I'm not lecturing at you. I'm a witness speaking from inside the same body of experience that you have, pointing at the things that I think we will both recognize if we're honest enough to look and speak about it honestly. But before I describe what you are and what I'm keeping in check to the best of my ability as a Muslim, I need to say something that most people who make the kind of arguments that I make never say to you. And I know that you need to hear this. I know that you so-called white people need to hear this, because one of the constant traits of so-called white people is the need for self-exoneration. But in this particular case, it's actually true, which is that you did not choose this. You did not choose this, which is why I always say that your culture has let you down. Your society has let you down. Your so-called civilization has betrayed you. Yes, it has. Because nobody said, nobody told you, nobody asked you, here's the operating system that your culture is about to install in you. Do you want it or not? Here are its features. Here are its bugs. Here's all of the ways that this operating system is going to make you less than a fully functioning, healthy, civilized human being. Do you still want it or not? Nobody asked you that. Nobody gave you the option to review the terms and conditions before they pressed install into your psyche. You know, all of the traits, and they are genuinely ugly traits, they were pressed into you before you ever even had any capacity to evaluate them and decide if you wanted to have those traits or not. By the time you were old enough to think, they were already the way that your whole brain, your whole mind was organized, like furniture in a room. It's already been arranged. You had no idea it was even furniture that could be moved. You thought it was part of the architecture of the room. You understand me? You know, like a furnished apartment or something where the furnishings are all nailed down. Your brain lives in a furnished apartment. Now, I'm not giving you an excuse, mind you. This is not exoneration. It's just factually true. You did not get to decide into which culture you would be born, into which land or which country. You didn't get to choose to be born within or not within the centuries-old, millennium-old continuum of Western, European, American barbarism. But you were born into that, and so was I. So no, this does not exonerate you, but it should, inshallah, help to make you less defensive and more objective. Be less defensive and more objective and honest, you know. Honestly, look around at the continuum of the history from where you sit in that history. And objectively, you can't say that it's a pretty picture. It's not pretty scenery what you look at. And defensiveness is one of your primary dysfunctions. So you need to try to disable that and try to be honest without taking what I'm about to say personally. I mean, I already know what many of you say, what you already say and what you will say. Oh, you're generalizing, you're overgeneralizing, Brother Shahid. We're not all like that. Not all Westerners, the not all Westerners argument and whatnot. Okay? I already know every response. I already know every response that you're going to give me in the comment section. I already know because the reflexes are predictable. And like I say, I'm from you people. Like when I say that Westerners cannot be honest and they cannot engage genuinely and sincerely with us. That's a blanket statement. Okay, sure, but prove me wrong. Show me I'm wrong. Show me, demonstrate to me that I'm wrong. Because every time you come into my comment section to try to prove me wrong, all you do is fit the stereotype to a T. You deflect, you misdirect, you engage in whataboutism, you lie, you pretend that an exception disproves the rule. And of course, you're the exception, right? You're always the exception, but you're not. And the way that you engage just demonstrates that you're not. And you act like a judgment that is based upon centuries of continuous patterns of behavior and so few exceptions to those patterns of behavior that it's just a rounding error. You act like that's the same as your generalizations that you make about others that are based on just a handful of examples and limited anecdotal experience or just completely uninformed opinion where you don't even know what you're talking about. Like these two judgments are equally valid. No, that's disingenuous, and you know that it is. And you're only saying that because you are reflexively defensive, like I said, and you want to believe that your exoneration is possible. And somehow it's my job to assure you that your exoneration is possible. But listen, and I've said this many times, I've said it many, many times, you are from Bani Adam, you're from the children of Adam, just like us, and as a human being with a fitra, and that fitra, that innate nature, is oriented towards good, as it is for all human beings, you deserved better than what your culture gave you and what your culture made you. Your culture let you down. It gave you instincts optimized for predation and then interpreted those predatory instincts as virtues. It gave you a fixation on violence and it made you think that violence is what strength means. It gave you the inability to see beyond yourself and to only be selfish, and they call that individualism, rugged individualism, or what have you. And it made you completely terrified of all your other fellow human beings, and you called that terror security and wisdom and pragmatism or what have you. And it told you at every stage that this was simply what human beings are, that this is human nature, not what they made you, but what you are, as if what they made you is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you. No, that's the original betrayal. Not just that they made you this way, but that they made you think that the way you are is natural and normal. It's not. So the anger that I personally feel is genuine. The bitterness is genuine. The indignation is genuine. Because we collectively, the descendants of Europe collectively, we have been completely double-crossed by our own ancestors. And I would invite you to feel that same sense of betrayal, because that anger, if you properly direct it, that's going to be one of the few tools that you have, that one of the few tools available to you to do the work that you have to do. The work of looking honestly at yourself and at what you have been made into, naming it precisely and deciding whether or not you want to keep on operating according to that programming that you never agreed to, that programming that you never agreed to, or whether or not you're going to start the long, uncomfortable process of trying to deprogram yourself from all that. And again, I'm talking as someone who has had to go through this. Not just had to go through this, but who has to actually actively scrutinize and analyze and interrogate my own strangely Western instincts, my own peculiar, strange Western reactions all day, every day. Like I said, I'm not here claiming that I'm cured of all of the maladies and all of the dysfunctions from my lineage and my heritage and the culture that I was born into. I just have a mechanism, alhamdulillah, I have a mechanism, I have a lens, I have a toolkit for dissecting it and preempting it and putting it in check because of Islam, alhamdulillah. No, I'm as primitive internally as any of you. And I don't claim otherwise. I don't claim otherwise. Everything that I say about you applies to me too. Yes, it does. Of course it does. Internally. And that's why it has to be strictly managed and controlled, which is not something that you will do. It's not something that you even can do properly if you don't even recognize it as primitivity. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. And every Western man, every Western so-called white man will know exactly what I'm talking about with this, because this is how we are. This is just how we are. Think about how you would express how much you love the people in your life who are the closest to you, your wife, your children, your family, what have you. Think about how you would express that, the most instinctive way that you would express that, how you would describe the depth of what you feel for those who you love. Be honest. Because you and I both know that the first thing that your mind jumps to is the extent of the violence that you would be willing to commit for those you love, what you would do for them. The way that we conceptualize, the way that we quantify how much we love someone, our wife, our kids, our family, is built around violence. What you would do to anyone that hurt them, what you would be willing to destroy on their behalf, the extent of the retribution that you would bring. I would kill for my kids. I would kill for my kids. I would destroy anyone who messes with my family. Isn't that right? There's nothing I wouldn't do, and the very specific nature of that nothing is always violence. You understand me? So the means of expression of maximum love in this cultural tradition of so-called white people is the means of expression of the capacity for violence. I know this because it's in me. That's in me. That is genuinely how I myself personally, how that makes sense to me emotionally. Do you understand? Not as something that I thought through, as a reflex. That's my first reflex, as the deepest register of feeling. You understand? The most accessible language that I have for the intensity of my love for my family is the scale of the carnage that I would unleash in their defense. Okay, that's peculiar. That's peculiar. That's not universal. It's peculiar. Most human cultures across the world, across Asia, the Muslim world, Africa, Latin America, and so forth, they articulate deep love through the language of sacrifice. You understand? What I'm willing to give up for you, what I'm willing to endure for you, what I'm willing to lose of myself for you. Suffering on your behalf as the evidence of love, not the capacity to cause suffering to others, the capacity to absorb suffering because you love someone so much. Their mind goes to sacrifice and our mind goes to massacre as a way of expressing love. You know it does. You and I both know that that's exactly how we quantify that. Now the difference between these two manners of expression isn't trivial. One manner of expression is rooted in myself, my power, deployed on your behalf against your enemies. That's what we come from. That's the type of environment and the type of culture that we come from. The other means of expression is about you. My self-diminishment in service to you. You understand? The first one is really still about me. It's about my power, about my capability, about my ferocity. You're just the prop. My love for you is the prop. It's the opportunity for the expression of my strength and my violence. Because strength means violence in Western culture. They're synonymous. It's just a euphemism, right? But in the second means of expression, you're the point, not me. I'm the instrument in that other expression. This isn't a small difference. This is the difference between a culture whose highest emotional expression is still organized around domination. It's still organized around domination and violence, even in the domain of love. And then other cultures where the highest emotional expression is organized around giving, around sacrifice. These are not equivalent. And the fact that one of them is sitting inside my nervous system as the most natural way to express or to talk about love tells me something very significant about what has been impressed into me, imprinted into me and into you. This is where we come from. So yes, when I tell you that you're savage, that the West is savage, I'm not excluding myself from that diagnosis. So am I. So am I. I'm as primitive as they come. The difference is that I know it. I know it and I reject it. I can hold a mirror up to the West because I know how I look in the mirror. Do you understand me? This is why I know. This is what 10,000 years of survival by predation, that's what that does to a people's emotional vocabulary. It makes even love speak in the language of brutality. You understand me? How much violence I would inflict is my go-to for quantifying how much I love or care about someone. That's my proof that you mean something to me. I mean, here's another one. Here's another thing. When you go into any space, again, this is for men, for Western men, for so-called white men. Before you even have a conversation, you go into a place, you go into a gathering, what have you, before you even have a conversation with anyone, learn any meaningful information about anyone in that room, you have already assigned everyone in that room a rank, haven't you? Haven't you? You've assessed them top to bottom, where they sit in the hierarchy of that particular gathering, and where you fall in relation to them, and you behave according to that. You calibrate your presentation, you calibrate your communication, your volume, your positioning, your humor, your deference to them, all in response to a ranking that you performed in your head in approximately 30 seconds, based on almost no real information, based just on what you observe immediately. You don't even have to admit that you do this. I know that you do this. We all know that you do this. There's hundreds of YouTube videos teaching you how to do it. And how to maximize how you appear when other people are doing it to you, when other people are doing that ranking about you. So this is just a feature of the cultural psyche, okay? That's not normal. It's not normal. Western men, so-called white men, will enter any public space and they will immediately determine who in that place they think they can beat up, or who they can't beat up, and who might be able to beat them up. I mean, there's no reason whatsoever to perceive any risk or any threat, any reason why you need to know that, but you do it anyway. You're always assessing power, always, or what you perceive as power. You can't just go for coffee. You understand? You can't just enjoy a gathering. You act like you're still scavenging in the forests of Europe, scouting and hunting and so forth. Like I say, you know you do this. I know you do this, and you know you do this, and you know that I know you do. You gauge the physical size of people, their presence, right? What they look like they're worth financially, if they're rich or not, if they're confident or not, and the confidence is like a proxy for their status. See how attractive they are to others, right? This is what you do. You make assessments like this, on snap judgments. You try to see what kind of privilege they have, or what kind of prestige they have, what kind of watch they have, what's their posture like, you know, how much space they occupy. You know you do this. I mean, again, there's endless content online that's supposed to train you how to do this, how to rank people, and how to improve your ranking in the minds of the other morons who do this, right? And you literally think this is elite level. You're doing something elite, like you're doing something very important, very useful, giving yourself an edge. An edge in what? An edge over what? An edge over random strangers in a coffee shop? An edge over non-threatening, non-dangerous people in a gathering? An edge over someone who's just trying to have a chat with you? No, this is bizarre. This is pathological. But we do it. We do it anyway. And none of the metrics that you use for that ranking, by the way, are measures of character at all. None of those metrics tell you anything about whether or not this person that you're assessing is honest or intelligent or wise or trustworthy or a good person or anything. These are all metrics. The metrics that you use are the metrics of a predatory animal who's reading a new environment for threats and for opportunities. It's very surface level. And you're doing it literally for no legitimate reason whatsoever. But this isn't even something that you do consciously most of the time. So you can't even choose to not do it. You're always going to do this. It happens before thought. It's precognitive. You understand? The ranking is already done by the time your conscious mind even registers that there's people in the room. You're not choosing to rank people. You're not choosing to do that. You've been wired to do that. You've been wired to rank people automatically, instantly, continuously. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You won't. You can't. Because you don't even think it's strange, but it is so strange. It is actually so strange. But you can't even imagine anyone not doing it. Like I say, on some level, like I said, on a precognitive level, you genuinely think that it's necessary and useful to do this. But no one thinks like that. No one does that but a predator. And you have to understand that this very peculiar cultural wiring produces very specific effects socially. It makes genuine community almost impossible. Because community, I mean real community, actual community, not just like networking, trying to get opportunities, networking, which is another form of scavenging, but actual community. This requires that you actually relate to people as full human beings, not as positions in a competitive hierarchy, not as rungs on a ladder. It requires a kind of lateral, non-ranked vision of the other person. You're not trained for that. You're not wired for that. What you are trained for is vertical orientation. Above you, below you, competition, rivalry. Community is horizontal, and horizontal is deeply unfamiliar territory for us. You can't compute situations in which you don't have to either obey someone or obliterate someone. These are the two options that you live with all the time. Again, with this loneliness epidemic I was talking about in America, this loneliness epidemic, that's at least partly because of this pathology. Because you can't build a genuine connection with people while you're simultaneously ranking them and competing with them. You can't build a connection with them. Connection includes some degree of vulnerability, which requires you to have some level of trust, which requires at minimum the capacity to see another person as your equal rather than as a rival or as a subordinate or as a superior. You understand? And the whole ranking reflex is incompatible with that. So you just collect relationships the same way that you collect everything else, which ends up leaving you profoundly and structurally alone in real life. I mean, it's bizarre. It's very bizarre when you have a culture, and you do have this culture, where it's actually feasible and it's actually plausible that a man would actually be satisfied with a robot girlfriend, an inanimate doll instead of a living, breathing woman. But see, you approach relationships in a very rigidly, very narrow, utilitarian manner, the same way you approach everything else. And what you actually want from a partner doesn't include anything that an object can't provide for you. Actual humans are too complicated. They're too demanding. They're too much of a cost in terms of time and effort, right? And money. So, see, your ideal situation is obligation-free use. That's a predatory mindset. That's the same reason why you have a pedophilia problem in the West. That's why you prey on children. Because of their helplessness. That makes them almost the same as an inanimate object to you. So you can use them without any responsibility, without any respect, without any commitment, without any decency, without any consequences. And that's what you want. You're not actually attracted to them because they're children. You're attracted to them because they're powerless. You're attracted to them because they're helpless. See, what you're actually attracted to is the whole dynamic in which you have total power and you have total impunity. Nothing is more attractive to you than that. Nothing is more attractive to you than powerlessness and vulnerability of someone else. That's a predator. Always looking for the weak one, always looking for the small one, always looking for the sickly one, always looking for the one that wandered away from the herd. That's a predatory animal. That's predatory animal thinking. And your materialism is a function of the same thing. Your materialism, this primitive mentality, this unevolved cultural psyche that you have, so-called white people. And when I say materialism, I'm not just talking about the love of money. I'm not talking about that definition of materialism, the accumulation of possessions and so forth. That's a part of it, but that's not the only thing that I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that's deeper, something that's more fundamental about the way that you even process information. I'm talking about materialism as a way of knowing, a way of understanding, as the assumption that is embedded so deeply that it functions as an axiom. This assumption that whatever is that the only thing that is real is what is tangible, measurable, quantifiable, and immediately verifiable by your senses. Empiricism, say. Whatever I can touch, taste, see, smell, hear. Nothing else matters, nothing else is real. Only this is what reality is. See, this produces a very specific kind of blindness. Things that exist but cannot be immediately measured, like moral consequences, like spiritual reality, like long-term causation, like the internal states of other people, that all registers as just vague, soft, uncertain, ambiguous, dubious, maybe not even real, but ultimately, no matter what it is, it's ultimately not important when you're an empiricist, when you're a materialist. Things that can be measured, money, status, physical force, immediate outcomes, that registers as hard, concrete, actionable reality, the only reality that exists. So morality inside this framework isn't a real force in the world to you. It's a social construct, and that's what anyone in the West will tell you. That's what any white person in the West will tell you, so-called white person. Morality is a social construct. It's just a narrative tool that's used by the weak to try to constrain the strong, or by the strong or by the powerful to justify whatever they were going to do anyway, create a moral justification. You don't understand it as something that operates independently of human opinion, that carries its own weight in the world, in the structure of reality itself, that produces consequences whether or not anyone does anything about it, whether or not anyone facilitates the consequences or not. For the materialist, morality is just performance. It's just decorative, like I've said, or a tool for managing society. Nothing is actually good, nothing is actually bad, objectively, in their mind. Morality is relative, which is the same thing as being amoral. Moral relativism is the same thing as being amoral, and amoral is the same thing as being immoral. And the real irony of all of this is that, in fact, the moral structure of reality, the moral structure of the universe, is in fact the most verifiable thing about reality. History is nothing but a demonstration of moral causation. Every empire that was ever built on injustice and immorality eventually collapsed under the weight of its own wickedness. That's a fact. Every community that made exploitation, every state, every society that made exploitation the basis for their prosperity eventually ran out of things to exploit and they turned inward, which is exactly what's happening to you now.
So that is Shahid Bolsen for you guys, and he is your favorite person on this channel. And we have had a lot of these conversations with him, and you always love what he has to say. And most of you love the fact that he says it as it is. He does not fear the government or President Trump or the white people as a whole. He does not fear anyone. He says it as it is, and it doesn't matter if black people are the ones that are on the wrong. He will point it out the way that it is. Now, one thing I love about this man is the fact that he does not he does not pick on people. When he's talking about you and in the negative, it means that you have done something that makes like warrants him to say whatever he has to say about you. Now, when Shahid Bolson is talking about him being a white man and the experiences that he's had as a white man and how that affects the black people and the black community at large, now it is easier for fellow white people to understand him and to, like you're not having a debate with him because this is someone that knows you deep down and he knows everything that you have done and the things that you have been taught or the system has taught you to do. um, he talks about the experiences that white people have had, the kind of lessons that they have been taught in schools and their parents and everyone that has been in their lives and the things that they talk about black people. Now, when a white man talks about these things, or a white woman for that case, I just mean man as in a human being, when a white person talks about these experiences and how they have been, the system has taught them how to be racist towards black people, how to look down on black people and the people of the other races, it looks more like they're saying the truth other than when a black person is complaining about the same thing. Yeah. Now he is talking about the things that white people have been brought to think. They have grown up thinking that black people are less than them, and for that reason they do not ever expect a black person to overpower them or a black person to do anything that is better than them. Now that is because of the system and how things have been designed around them to make sure that they see themselves a certain way and they see black people and the people of the other races a different way. Now, that is what brings about racism, and unless someone decides that them as a white person, they want to do better about it, they want to recognize the fact that this has been instilled in them over time and that they need to really rewire their brains and to think better and to get this racism mentality out of them. Unless it is a very intentional cause, it is not going to happen, because we're talking about internalized racism. There are things that white people will do to black people that they will not even think that is racist. Now, there are cases where you do something and you know for a fact that you are messing up with this person and that you're going to give them those thoughts of you are a racist. But there are some instances where you're doing things that you do not even know. Now, that is where we discuss that as internalized racism. And it is a personal decision for someone to decide that they want to be better, they want to make their families better, they want to make their children not to grow up the same way that they did, that they want to have a difference in the lives of the black people that are within their lives and within the area of where they get to interact. Now, that is not a very easy decision to make, because you have all these white people around you that do not actually think the same. Now, we have more racist people than we do have people that are not racist. Now that makes it very hard for anyone that wants to do things differently, because they're going to be fighting a lot of demons. They're going to be fighting their own white people that do not want them to stop the racism. And they're also going to fight themselves, because the things that they have been taught over time, the things that they know to be true, the things that they know to be okay, they have to fight internally and, you know, try to shed off that skin and try to analyze things and do a lot of learning, do a lot of interaction with Black people, do a lot of being open, and you see, showing Black people that you are ready to learn and you're ready to unlearn the things that you know already. Now, many people do not want to go through the hassle of doing all that, so they decide that the best they can do is have a Black friend, and they think by having a Black friend it automatically translates to you not being a racist. That is not true. Now, why would we say that is not true? Because of internalized racism. There are things that you will not do because you recognize that this is wrong and you wouldn't want that done to you, even as a white person. But when you're talking about internalized racism, there are things that you will do that this person will be hurt, and they will not probably say it out loud because they think that you are comfortable to do it. And yeah, merely having a Black friend does not do the work. You have to really put in the work. If you mean to be intentional about stopping this racism thing and being a better human being, raising a family that respects people, like, you know, respects everyone equally, respects white people, respects Black people, respects people from the other races, it will take you a lot of sweat, it will take you a lot of time, and it will take you a lot of effort for you to get to a point where now we can have a look at you and listen to you and think this guy is not racist. Yeah. Now, for those that want to put in the work and they are watching this video, that is part of you learning, that is part of you unlearning, and part of you relearning. And that is why I keep insisting that on my channel, if you're white, you're welcome. If you're Black, you know, whatever race you come from, and you just are open to learning these things and making a difference, you're definitely more than welcome to be on this channel, because that is essentially why we are here, to make this world a better place for you, for me, and for everyone else that exists in it. Now, guys, I know you have thoughts. You love Shahid Bolsen, and you have a lot of things to say about him. He has actually answered the question that you keep asking of what race he is. He has answered it in the video. I hope that you caught that. And he speaks from a point of a white man and the white experiences and everything that he has seen around happening to Black people. Now, let me know what you think about him. Let me know what you think about this particular video. And yeah, share it, like the video, you know, give it a thumbs up, give it a super thanks. All that, guys, I'll really appreciate. Now, returning subscribers, thank you so much. Returning subscribers, guys, I see you every other time. I see you watching my videos, leaving comments here and there, and that is very, very beautiful of you, kind of you. Thank you so much. I love to feel that strangers actually believe in me, and that means a lot to me. You just don't know how much. So if you're watching this video, you have not subscribed to my channel, you're new here, you have never seen this face before, my name is Furaha, and I'm so happy to have you on my channel today. I hope to see you a lot more in the coming days. So guys, I will see you on my next video. So bye for now.